The silence in the room was heavy, a silence that seemed to stretch longer than it should. Every eye turned toward the homeowner as they stood, papers clutched firmly in hand. The board, sitting at the front of the room, appeared irritated more than concerned, as though this was just another routine complaint they could brush aside. But this wasn't going to be routine. This was the moment everything changed. The homeowner began to speak calmly, but with a steadiness that demanded attention. They described the notice, the absurd demand not to park in their own driveway, and the escalating threats of towing. They didn't embellish, didn't exaggerate, just the plain, frustrating truth. The room nodded along, neighbors shifting in their seats, murmuring in agreement. The board, however, leaned back smugly, waiting for their chance to dismiss the complaint with a wave of authority. But then came the twist. With deliberate care, the homeowner held up the first piece of evidence, a photograph of a board member's driveway, 3 cars lined up neatly, parked overnight for weeks without a single violation. Murmurs grew louder. More photos followed. An RV parked for months, a company van left nightly in full view. Another board member's own garage converted into storage while their cars sat permanently outside. Each photo hit harder than the last, chipping away at the facade of fairness the board had tried so hard to maintain. The board members' faces began to shift. Smugness gave way to discomfort, then to thinly veiled anger. They tried to interrupt, to claim the photos were taken out of context, but the homeowner pressed on, flipping through pages of dates, times, and more evidence. The notebook filled with records was laid bare for all to see. Each entry a nail in the coffin of their authority. The room was buzzing now. Neighbors whispering loudly, pointing at the evidence, nodding in agreement. This wasn't just one homeowner's problem, it was everyone's. The selective enforcement, the hypocrisy, the abuse of power, it was undeniable. The board could no longer hide behind vague language or empty threats. And then came the final blow. The homeowner read directly from the HOA bylaws, pointing out the section that required a community-wide vote for any major rule changes. The so-called driveway policy had never been voted on, never properly ratified, never made legitimate. It was nothing more than an invented rule pushed through by the board, wielded like a weapon against the residents. The room erupted. Neighbors who had been silent for months found their voices, speaking up, shouting questions, demanding answers. The board scrambled to regain control, banging the gavel, insisting on order. But their authority was crumbling right in front of them. For the first time, the residents saw the truth. The HOA wasn't protecting the community, it was exploiting it. The confrontation dragged on, voices raised, accusations flying. The board tried to threaten, tried to intimidate, but the spell was broken. No one was afraid anymore. The more they blustered, the more foolish they looked. Their hypocrisy had been exposed, their fake rule laid bare, their control shattered. By the end of the meeting, the board was visibly shaken. They managed to adjourn, retreating quickly with stacks of papers and tight expressions. But the damage was done. The neighborhood had seen the truth, and there was no undoing it. Outside the meeting hall, neighbors gathered in clusters, buzzing with excitement and anger. Some shook the homeowner's hand, thanking them for speaking up. Others began talking openly about organizing, about challenging the board, about finally pushing back. The sense of fear that had lingered in the neighborhood for so long was gone. In its place was something far more dangerous for the HOA, unity. But the homeowner knew this wasn't the end. Exposing the hypocrisy was a victory, but it wasn't revenge. Not yet. The board was wounded, but not defeated. They would regroup, they would fight back, and they would not let go of their power easily. Already, the homeowner could imagine the late-night meetings, the whispered phone calls, the desperate scramble to cover their tracks. This was only the beginning of the war. The board had underestimated their opponent once. They would not make that mistake again. The next move would be harsher, more underhanded, more personal. And so, preparations continued. The notebook of violations was expanded, the bylaws studied even further, and the network of residents kept growing stronger. Every step the HOA took from this point on would be watched, documented, and ready to be turned against them. Because the homeowner wasn't just defending their right to park in their own driveway anymore, they were preparing for revenge. Real revenge. The kind that wouldn't just embarrass the board, but dismantle it piece by piece. And soon, the board would hand them the perfect opportunity.